Hello, so today I'm going to talk about the story that I have, The Tiger's Bride. And so, what the story is basically about is this daughter and her father travel to Italy from Russia, and they reach this one town where the the story calls it a senor. I don't know if I pronounced that right or not. It's basically his town. And what people have to do when they get to that town is they have to play him with a game of cards. Now, the girl's father happens to be gambling at it. And so the father ends up losing. First, he actually gambles away all of his money. And then he loses his daughter, or he bets his daughter and then loses her in the last game. So then, the next day after card game, the Beast valet comes to get the girl, and as they're coming back to his palazzo, she recalls the story her English maid had told her when they were younger, and it was basically about this tiger man that she had saw in London, and it kind of gives her this preconceived notion of what to kind of expect from the Beast, and she isn't super scared of him, more observant if anything. And so while this last card game is going on, we go a little bit into the father and daughter's backstory, and the mother had died pretty early on after she was born. She's also born on Christmas, and she had died because of the father's vices. And so now that this card game's over, he starts to show regret and kind of realizes immediately what he has done. But the story says, the Beast says to him, "My master says, if you're so careless of your treasures, you should expect them to be taken from you," which reflects how obviously this father was willing to bet his daughter in a card game, which is pretty bad. So at the Beast Palace, she notices that he kind of, as she quotes, that he had bought solitude with his money, not luxury. And so the valet comes in to where she's being held, and he tells her that the Beast has one demand of her. And if she complies with the demand, then she will be returned to her father, and he will get all the money he lost in the card game back, and that demand is to see her naked. Now, she does not like this, because, being religious, she's not really supposed to do that. So, she basically offers him by saying, well, I'll have sex with him, but she basically requests to be covered up with a sheet, so I guess she doesn't have to see what's going on. And then he has to pay her as if she's a prostitute, which this kind of takes a little bit of the power away from him, because it's sort of like, well, she has the power to do this, she's agreeing to this act, not the one that he wants. And so it's kind of a rejection to him, and this actually makes him shed one tear. And so she is then put in sort of a bedroom, kind of like a cell. So when she's in the cell, the valet comes back later on, and he brings her a pair of earrings. And she throws the earrings into the corner, rejecting the Beast again. And so he invites her to go riding. So they go out riding the next morning, and they end up at a riverbed, and the valet tells the girl that if she won't get naked for the master, she has to see the master naked. And so she kind of agrees to finally get naked, and the master gets what he wants. And so they go back after a little bit to the palace, and instead of being put in the same cell she was in beforehand, she gets put in a nicer room. And at one point she's handed this magic mirror, and No, this is before. This is like right before she's all set to be returned to her father. The beast is actually preparing the money, and in the mirror she sees her father's face, and he's looking immediately better. He's looking cleaner. It's known that he's cleaner shaven, and it's basically him showing the satisfaction of getting his daughter back. And she kind of thinks about how messed up it was that he gambled her away. And so she ends up giving herself up to the beast, and the beast licks her skin off, and it kind of reveals her fur, and that's how the story ends. So from a social standpoint, I'd say the story takes place somewhere in between 1838 and 1861, because she notes that the town that they're in is very outdated and doesn't have a casino. The first casino in Italy was made in 1638, and then she also notes how they had serfs back in Russia, and the owning of serfs was outlawed in 1861, and so it's going to be some time in between there, maybe a little bit later, because serfs were tied to the land instead of an actual person owning them. And since they left, they would no longer be owned. So couldn't find anything on if there was a little in-between period or not. It is also worth noting that the only way to get married in Imperial Russia was through the church, and that also made it fairly hard to get a divorce, and sort of in the time frame that they're talking overall, divorce was more rare and harder to get. Now, as for the comparison between The Tiger's Bride and then the version of Sleeping Beauty by Beaumont, they both talk about the same sort of subject, or they have the same meaning, where they both have to do with marriage, but they go about it in slightly different ways. In Beaumont, it's a lot more positive. It's more about, hey, let's find someone that you're happy with, and then that's evident by the beast. In Beaumont, the beast isn't really scared of the girl, while in The Tiger's Bride, he is scared. He showed, he hides himself, he lives alone, there's no humans with him. He hides his face with a mask. It's noted that he can't really show emotions, probably why he sheds a single tear, while in the Beaumont version, the girl is slightly scared of the beast, but the beast picks up on this, and he does try to make her feel better. And another thing that's different is actually the premises themselves. While in The Tiger's Bride, the father loses the daughter in the gambling match, but in the Beaumont version, he loses his fortune, I'm unsure why, and he ends up going out, and he stays at this palace, and he doesn't know, who's owning it or who's taking care of it, but he ends up taking a rose for his daughter, and he has multiple daughters and sons in this version. And so the beast says, well, you stole from me, I can't let you go. And he basically says, you have to bring me one of your daughters for marriage, and if he doesn't, then he will die. And he kind of does this to be able to see his daughters again, rather than personal gain, as in The Tiger's Bride. And so the daughter in the Beaumont version basically gives herself up, and she comes there, and in the Beaumont version, it's a lot more positive, and it's very easy to tell. The overall descriptions of everything are much more positive. The interactions are much more positive. The beast goes out of his way to accommodate a daughter in the Beaumont version of